Chronicles of a Play Therapist podcast is raw, unfiltered, and unapologetic, discussing mental health from a play therapy specialization, including trends, treatment approaches and techniques, theory, and the business of psychotherapy practice. Get ready to learn and play with your host, licensed clinical social worker and registered play therapist supervisor, Althea T. Simpson.
Welcome to another episode of Chronicles of a Play Therapist. I am your host, Althea T. Simpson, licensed clinical social worker and registered play therapist supervisor. I am the founder of Brighter Day Therapeutic Solutions and Unicorn Life Play Therapy Training. This episode will focus on the business of psychotherapy practice. Now, let me give you a disclaimer. I am not a legal professional, so my advice as a business professional is to consult a business attorney, your accountant, or you can even contact the Small Business Administration if you have questions about how to set up your business legally. Today's episode is about essentials to getting started with your psychotherapy practice. Your psychotherapy practice or mental health practice doesn't have to be outpatient psychotherapy. It can be intensive in-home services. It could be therapeutic day treatment services. And especially if you work with children and adolescents, you can set up an in-school therapeutic day treatment program. Or your business could be mental health consulting. So whatever your psychotherapy practice looks like, these are some essentials for starting your practice. It's not an exhaustive checklist, but it's a list of some essentials. So first and foremost, I would say you have to have a willingness to serve with integrity and humility. Integrity is so important in any business, especially in the mental health field, because we have clients who come to us in different stages of their lives, and they rely on us to provide the best services to them that we possibly can. And we have to do that with integrity and humility, because we hear so many things, and some you may agree with, some you may not agree with, but that's not your place once you close that door and start providing services to clients. So we have to meet them with some humility. Making your business legal. Set up your business entity, whether it's a sole proprietorship, a limited liability company, a corporation, or a partnership. You have to set up your business legally. An LLC, limited liability company, may be what you need to start with as a solo practitioner. And as you grow your business and start diversifying your business, you may want to change the structure of your business. But again, consult with a legal business professional or an accountant. You want to make sure that you have your tax ID. That's your EIN number. That's a tax ID number. Once you are set up legally as a business entity, take those documents to the bank. Open up a bank account. You want to make sure you have a business bank account. You want your personal finances to be separate from your business finances. You don't want to commingle those. So just set up a business banking account, whatever branch, bank, or credit union you want to use. It's essential to have a business banking account. So group practice. I mentioned solo practice. You may want to start off with an LLC, but if you have a group practice and then you're entering into a partnership with someone, then LLC may not be relevant to your situation. But if you're starting a group practice, which is multiple therapists providing services on behalf of your business, you must decide if you want to have employees or 1099 contractors or both. You need to know the difference between employees and contractors. If you have a 1099 contractor, you are not their employer. So you don't get to tell them how to structure their schedule, if they have to attend meetings. When you start putting your requirements on a 1099 contractor or trying to control their schedule, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. If you're trying to control their schedule and determine when they work, then you're moving into them operating as your employee. And that can get you into a lot of tax problems. So you want to make sure that you're clear about employees versus 1099 contractors. And then what's the split? If you have a 1099 contractor, a 1099 contractor Typically, those agreements, the industry standard is 60-40, where the 60% goes to the contractor and the 40% goes to the business owner. Don't be janky. They're providing the services and they're bringing income into your business. Now, that can look different depending on how your practice is set up. Some people do 70-30, where again, the larger portion of the percentage goes to the clinician. That's a 1099 contractor. So if you do a 70-30, most people that do 70-30 is they have more experienced clinicians with them. And you could do a 50-50. It all depends on how you structure it. So that's important to know how you want to structure that 1099 contract and make sure you have an agreement. Are you providing the billing services? So there are so many things that come along with having a 1099 contractor. I offered a flat rate to my 1099 contractors. I did a flat rate per client and I provided them with clinical supervision for licensure. So that's something else that you can consider or think about when you are developing a 1099 agreement. Are you providing supervision? If you're providing supervision, now let's be honest, supervision is required to become a licensed mental health professional, and supervision can be expensive. So for those who are entering into 1099 contracting agreements, and you want to really think about the value of that agreement, because for me, I would take a lower rate any day if that practice is providing me with my clinical supervision, because clinical supervision, depending on where you are, can average from $85 up to $200, or some people $250 per supervision. And you have to do supervision every week for 2 years. So you want to think about that when you are looking at your agreements. Am I going to get more value with, let's say, $30 to $40 per client, but they are providing me with my clinical supervision? So that's something to think about when you are entering into 1099 contractor agreements. But as a business owner or the practice owner, you want to make sure you make the distinction between employee or 1099 contractor. You want to make sure that you have private practice forms. Your policies and procedures are essential, very essential to your practice. It determines how you are going to work with your clients, what your expectations are, what your responsibilities are to your client, and what your client's responsibilities are for receiving services. And this is something that you want to make sure that you have set up. Your consent to treatment, giving permission, talking about the risk of receiving psychotherapy treatment or mental health treatment. The risk could be expressions of negative emotions that may cause some anxiety. So you want to make sure you have a consent to treatment, and in your policies and procedures that you may have a no-show or late cancellation policy, that you charge clients who do not cancel within 24 hours. So you want to make sure that that's in your policies and procedures if they are going to incur a fee for late cancellations or no-shows, because you don't want to surprise clients with fees that they were not expecting. But if it's in your policies and procedures and you walk through your policies and procedures with your clients, they know that they will have a fee if they don't cancel, typically within 24 hours. But going back to that, if your client cancels, but you can fill that slot, is it ethical? Or is it moral? You decide to still charge that client. I'll leave that up to you, but have late cancellations and no-show fees upfront in your policies and procedures and letting your clients know. You want to have a website. Websites are important because most people thinking about working with you, they make a decision based on your website. So, I don't know how helpful it's going to be if your website is deceiving and you don't really have the skill set that you say you have on your website. So clients have to be aware of that as well. But let's say you're operating above board, your website, people will go to your website. They want to know about you. They're going to Google you. So be careful with your social media. We are human, not saying that you shouldn't have a life, but your clients want to know more about you, or potential clients want to know more about you. But having a website outlining your products and services that you offer, your hours of operation, You could put your hourly rate on your website, the types of insurance, if you accept insurance on your website. Be upfront with people so you're not wasting their time and they're not wasting your time. Because if you charge $185 an hour, that may be out of someone's price range. But if it's not on your website, they don't know that. And so you going back and forth with phone calls or consultations, and it's out of their price range. What you cannot do is post your insurance reimbursement rate on your website. You cannot disclose your insurance reimbursement rate, but you can put your private practice, private pay rate on your website. So those are some things to consider having on your website. So you're getting the right clients and you all are not wasting each other's time. You want to make sure you have insurance. And that's if you're in full-time private practice and you don't have a spouse or partner that you have health insurance under, you want to make sure that you get health insurance. If you need health insurance, get health insurance. That's a question that a lot of people that want to go into full-time private practice have questions about. You can get health insurance from the healthcare marketplace, and they're compatible and comparable if you are working for an agency or organization. If you think about the money that comes out of your check for that health insurance, it may be a little more, but I don't think it's too pricey from what you're already paying as an employee of someone else. You want to make sure that you have business insurance. Business insurance, especially if you have a brick and mortar and you have a client that slip and fall or something happens, like if you're creative like I am and push the limits, I started a little bonfire in my office to do a trauma-informed activity using s'mores. And so that could have gone wrong in so many ways, but I had the little fire extinguisher. I made sure I had everything set up just in case. And it was a small fire, so I can contain it. But who knows if a kid would have knocked it over and it spilled over the place. So business insurance protects you. And then I have a high-tech therapy practice, so I use a lot of technology and big screens and equipment that could get broken. And so my business insurance will cover that. So you want to make sure that you have business insurance. Talk to a business broker, insurance broker, to make sure that it fits, because you don't want to be underinsured for what you have in your practice. And then you want to have liability insurance. Now, this is something that a lot of therapists don't think about. And even if you're working for someone else, it's a good idea to have liability insurance, because that liability insurance is going to look out for the best interest of their client. And so if you're working for someone and something happens, client files a claim or want to take you to court, the insurance company is going to focus on their client, who is the policy holder. So as an employee, you want to make sure that you have your own liability insurance. As a practice owner, you want to have liability insurance that covers you and your practice. My liability insurance covers me and my practice, and I have an arm on my liability insurance, because if anything happens that I have to defend myself or have to go to court or anything like that, or fighting for my license, I don't want to pay out of pocket, right? And if I have to pay out of pocket, I want it to be minimal. That's what I'm trying to say. So liability insurance, it can help if you get a complaint filed against your license or you have to go to court. I've contacted my liability insurance when I've been subpoenaed to go to court. And then if you have to go to mediation or anything like that, you can have someone from your liability insurance. They can send an attorney with you. Just have liability insurance. It's good to have liability insurance. So what else do we need to have? Oh, private practice, having a private practice consultant and a clinical consultant. I have a private practice consultant and a clinical consultant who is a clinical supervisor. And so On the private practice side, it can help you to develop yourself professionally, diversify your income, monetize your skills, having a consultant, because you want to work harder. Want to work smarter, not harder, and ditch that mindset that because we're in the helping profession, you can't earn money and you're not supposed to earn money. Yeah, that's a myth that should be shattered. But at any rate, private practice consultant can help you grow and scale your business, monetize your skills. A clinical consultant can help you with clinical practice. If you're stuck on a case, I reach out to clinical consultants when I'm stuck on cases. I've been doing trauma work since 2006, and there's times where I get stumped. And so I contact clinical consultant, and yes, I pay them. You can have peer consultation too. Peer consultation is great to have, but sometimes you have to have a consultant that specializes in something. Trauma is my specialty, working with children who were sexually abused or adults who were sexually abused as children, and that stuff is coming up for them. Sometimes I get stuck and I have to reach out and schedule an appointment to meet with a consultant that works in that area, that specializes in sexual trauma as well. So having a private practice consultant and a clinical consultant, and you don't have to meet with them every week like you do with clinical supervision. I think that that's what prevents a lot of people who already have their license from seeking consultation, professional consultation, which is different from peer consultation. But seeking professional consultation is not the same as having to meet every week for 2 years like you do to get your clinical license, the hours for your clinical license. It is meeting with them when you need to. It's sort of like a checks and balances for the services you provide and how you operate your business. So there's nothing wrong with investing in a clinical consultant or a private practice consultant, especially if you want to grow your business. So I think that was a good list, a pretty good list. So first and foremost, a willingness to serve, with integrity and humility, making your business legal. So setting up a legal entity for your business. And that, again, that may change as you grow. Having a business banking account. If you're having a group practice, make the distinction between employees and 1099 contractors. Having private practice forms set up for policies and procedures and consent to treatment. And so then your website, health insurance, business insurance, liability insurance, having a private practice consultant, a clinical consultant. And again, let me go back to setup of your private practice. You want to check with your state. So make sure you check with your state, because I started out being a clinical consultant in Virginia. I'm licensed in the state of Virginia. Was licensed in DC too. But in the state of Virginia, I did clinical consulting for in-home businesses, intensive in-home agencies, and therapeutic day treatment programs. And you don't have to have a clinical license to start those businesses. You have to have a clinical director or a clinical consultant. I didn't sign on to be anyone's director because I wasn't working for anyone else's agency. So I signed on as clinical consultant for those businesses. But make sure you check with your state, because not all states allow that for you to set up those types of businesses. But in the state of Virginia, you can start an intensive in-home business and a therapeutic day treatment business without having a clinical license, but you have to have clinical staff to oversee your program. And so one of the things I did as I grew as a clinical consultant, I started being very particular about the agencies that I would be a clinical consultant for. So I would only become a clinical consultant for agencies that the owner was working towards their own licensure. One, I found that they were more invested into the quality of care that they were providing. But two, I wanted them to be set up where they didn't have to keep paying out thousands of dollars a month to someone like me, who's a clinical consultant, to oversee your program, having to sign off on your program. if you're going to start that type of business, make sure that you're working towards licensure if you don't have your license, because the last thing you want is for someone else to control a business that you've invested in financially and that you set up, because you have to have a clinical license to do mental health treatment, or you have to have an overseer, and you don't want someone else overseeing your business for the life of your business. So I would say, if you're going to start that type of business before becoming licensed, think about it, because you're going to be paying out to a clinical consultant, which is great for the clinical consultant. It definitely reduced the amount of clients I needed to see for traditional psychotherapy, because I was overseeing the staff and the business, other smaller agencies, mental health agencies. So I just started consulting with people who were more invested in the quality of care and services that they were going to provide to the community, and they were working toward their licensure. So think about it, 2 years of paying a clinical consultant versus paying a clinical consultant for the life of your business. But again, you have to check your state requirements. I know in the state of Virginia, you're able to have a clinical consultant or a clinical director in mental health business, therapeutic day treatment, or intensive in-home business without a clinical license. Well, I am at the end of today's Play Therapy Informational Podcast. I am your host, Althea T. Simpson. This has been the Business of Psychotherapy Practice episode of Chronicles of a Play Therapist. Thanks for playing, and until the next time, play well.
Chronicles of a Play Therapist is sponsored by Unicorn Life Play Therapy Academy, where play therapy is magical. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe in your favorite podcast app and follow us on YouTube. Chronicles of a Play Therapist is intellectual property of Althea T. Simpson. All rights reserved.